Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the City Council Special Study Session meeting of Tuesday, April 23rd, 2024. I now call the meeting to order. Let's stand up and say the Pledge of Allegiance together. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag All right, excellent. Madam Clerk, would you please do the voice roll call? And oh, by the way, Councilmember Marr is attending via Zoom. Here.
Attending remotely, I have properly posted my location in accordance with the Brown Act.
Here. Okay, we'll do public comments at this time. Can I just get do we have anybody on Zoom for public comments, Madam Clerk? Okay, and then how many people want to do public comments in the chambers? 1, 2, okay. Then if there's no objection from council, why don't we make it a 3-minute like it normally is instead of the 2 minutes for study sessions? So I'm not hearing any objections, so public comments will be heard at this time. It's only on the item pertaining to the study session. You can't talk about anything else. It's a pretty broad topic, the capital improvement program. So members of the public in the chambers that wish to speak, come on up, and you'll get three minutes.
Afternoon, Mayor, Council members. At the Friday study session or strategic planning session, there was discussion on priorities, capital projects, and also measuring. Quite a bit of discussion. A lot of council members, a lot of staff members mentioned that they would like to see more measuring. I think this is a perfect opportunity to integrate both of those. Starting budget cycle here and reviewing the budgets, and this is when I think measuring can come into play. And what I want to talk about is the process. I'm really talking about the process here. I think the process can be improved so that collectively staff and council can make sure that their priorities are being met and being addressed in the annual capital budget. So Stacy, could you go ahead? And I'm just going to, it's easier to talk, picture's worth 1,000 words. So I sent this to council. It came today, apparently. I had to send it yesterday, but in any case, it didn't make it. I'm not sure if you had a chance to see this, but in the annual budget, every annual budget contains a capital improvement program, a 5-year capital improvement program. Every year that's updated. Then there's also the proposal, which is going to be presented today by staff. The middle column there is what's in the what's in the annual budget today, your current budget. That's when basically what council approved last June as to be anticipated or forecasted to be submitted for the budget the upcoming year, 24-25. So that's total is 34 million. What's being presented today is 47.9. If you can scroll up to the top, please, Stacy. What I want to highlight, though, is break it down by projects. For example, what's in the capital improvement program is $1.5 million for energy and sustainability. What's proposed is 0. Now, at Friday, a lot of council members mentioned that energy and sustainability is one of the main priorities for council, yet there's 0 here. Do you want to change that? That's an opportunity to change that. Can you scroll down a little bit more? I got to hustle here a little bit. 4.9 in the capital improvement program for parks, only 1 million proposed. What's that difference? The main difference is West Side Park development. That's being deferred. If you go back 3 years, actually, that project has been deferred for 3 years in a row. So what's the council's priority? Does it want to use that, or does it want to use the proposed? The Harper Park, Marina View Park, collectively add up to about $400,000. There's a new item here, Jack Hammett Sports Complex. That's a new project, has not been on this list before, but it's leapfrogged all these other two projects that have been existing on the capital improvement program. So it's an issue of, this gives you the detailed information that you're not getting today because of the process.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Hi, Mayor and City Council. My name is Roberto, and I work with Resilience Orange County. We've been working with the Latino community here in Costa Mesa. And I think at the last City Council meeting, I talked about wanting to, I have 90 signatures from Center Street, where the residents are, I'll read this in Spanish. Muchos residentes que viven cerca de la calle Center en Costa Mesa comparten que las condiciones de calle Plummer se han deteriorado y necesitan una reparación. La ciudad de Costa Mesa está aprobando su presupuesto anual y este es el momento para compartir nuestras preocupaciones con el Concilio de Costa Mesa para poder hacer un cambio. Firma si está en favor de solicitar a la ciudad que busque una solución para mejorar este callejón. Basically, what this is saying is lots of residents who live off Center Street in Costa Mesa have shared about the deteriorating conditions on Plummer Street. And the city is passing its annual budget for capital improvement projects. So this is a time for us to get together and organize to share our concerns with City Council. Please sign if you are in favor of asking the city to find a solution to improving the alleyway. And so 90 residents have shared from that specific Center Street. And yeah, I just wanted to turn this into, I also emailed it. I know I emailed it late, but I also included pictures of the alleyway. So then that way you can see that, you know, there's potholes and it just needs repair and improvement. So that's my public comment. Thank you so much, City Council.
Thank you. Jen,
Just waiting for
wait, let's wait, make sure you get your, you have a presentation. So
do.
let's get that up on the screen and then you can start your 2 minutes. 3 minutes, right, sorry.
Okay. Good evening, City Council and staff, and a happy Passover to those of you who celebrate. I want to take this opportunity to also advocate for our neighborhood parks. And I want to do this because I think they're falling through the cracks. And I've looked at this year's CIP and I see two issues with park funding generally, similar to Ralph. The first problem is that we are no longer refilling our park development fund through development fees. I won't belabor why, I think we all know why. But we've lost this steady source of revenue and it doesn't really exist, which means that parks must draw on the general fund instead of funding, or grant funding instead of development fees. And then the second problem, how do I advance this? This way, oh, there we go. The second problem is that we're seeing a deprioritization of our neighborhood parks, frankly. Comparing our 1-year CIP and our 5-year CIP is instructive. Many ways, the 5-year CIP is our wish list, project we want to do but don't have the bandwidth to do today. And as you can see, parks make up a good chunk of our wish list spending on the right, but they make up a tiny fraction of present spending, and that's especially true even if you back out the bond issuances that we're doing in this CIP. And I realize we've gotten some big grants in parks recently, but I would submit that they are highly geographically concentrated and they are spending on Fairview Park, while important, is not the same thing as improving a neighborhood park. Small neighborhood parks have almost no chance of securing substantial outside grant funding. So here are my suggestions. Simply put, we should recognize this, that we've inadvertently defunded our neighborhood local parks and spend more on them. It's important to support the council's priority on making Costa Mesa more walkable. Walkability includes improving the desire to walk, and refreshing neighborhood parks makes people excited. It gives residents a sense of momentum and forward progress. And also, the longer we put these types of projects off, the more expensive they become in terms of deferred maintenance as well as construction costs. I also think we should explore ways to knock out these projects more efficiently, and I just want to use playgrounds as an example. This slide shows areas that we are presently looking at improvements in the 1-year CIP and in our ongoing CIP that I would describe as neighborhood park improvements. And then these are kind of the areas I would say don't really have very many of those, and that's about a 1 mile radius circle for each one. And if you go forward to our 5-year, these are just playground replacements. That's it for these parks that are now starred. I wonder if we could bundle some of these projects together, pick the same vendor, plan and execute them, or bid them together. They're just replacing playground equipment. Is that a way that we could do this more efficiently? I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel every time we touch a park. So if we could figure out a way to get these projects done, that would be great. And I, of course, love for you to take a look at Harper Park specifically. So please take a look at that. Thank you.
Anybody else in the chambers? I don't see anybody coming up to the mic. How about on Zoom, Madam Clerk? Do we have anybody that wants to speak? Okay, we'll close public comment then. And then, would you please, well, we have one study session item tonight. Madam Clerk, would you please read the title? All right, and remember, like what we usually do on study session, it's optional if you guys want to be formal, but you can be informal. He can be Raja today, and I can be John, and we're dressed kind of informally. Take your time, and let's hear what you have to say, Raja. It's optional. It's optional. You lost your mic.
Thank you, Mr. Sethuraman. So good evening, Mr. Mayor and honorable members of the City Council. My name is Sung Yang, and I'm your city engineer. I'm very proud to present to you our accomplishments from last fiscal year, 23-24, with respect to our capital improvement program, especially with respect to citywide street improvements. So last fiscal year, the streets that were improved included a combination of slurry seal and full-depth pavement rehabilitation. So to put that into some context, approximately 13 lane miles or 66,732 lineal feet have been improved. So that's almost equivalent to the length of the I-405 from State Highway 22, or which is the 22 freeway, to the John Wayne Airport. So that's a significant amount. And some of the marquee streets that we improved last fiscal year include West 19th Street, Placentia Avenue, East 70th Street, and currently Adams Avenue, which is under construction, which is still within this fiscal year. But in context, these streets, they may seem like street improvements, but in reality, we work in conjunction with active transportation. For example, West 19th Street and Placentia Avenue, we made significant improvements in terms of buffered bike lanes and other improvements to improve active transportation. For example, on Placentia Avenue south of Wilson Street, we've specifically slurry sealed, even though that seems like a street improvement, but it's an active transportation improvement because we wanted to put in the new street markings and buffered bike lanes, green conflict zones and crosswalks that all contribute to active transportation. And it's a significant improvement for what we have from last time. So in addition, that's essentially the street improvements are in conjunction with a lot of our active transportation improvements as well. So Costa Mesa has always maintained a very good PCI. Last fiscal year, we had a PCI of 83.4, and it's growing steadily. The total allocation of approximately $12 million from various funding sources, which includes our capital improvement fund, the Measure M2 Fair Share Fund, and obviously the gas tax fund. So the next project is the HAWK signals. We've installed the high-intensity active crosswalks, which are known as HAWKs. They provide additional safety elements to pedestrian crossings, and they provide increased awareness of pedestrian crossings to motorists. And the primary locations that we installed them were at Wilson Park and also Lions Park, which is West 18th Street for Lions Park, and also Wilson Park, Wilson Street on Wilson Park. Next slide. So the marquee traffic signal that we installed was at West 19th Street and Wallace Avenue. We installed a new traffic signal there to facilitate pedestrian access to commercial establishments and all to the residents in that area as well. In addition, we also installed new concrete bulb outs on the north side of Wallace Avenue, which now helps with pedestrian visibility and also mobility as well. So I talked about Placentia Avenue. So here's a pictorial representation of what we did on Placentia Avenue. And the before and after is quite remarkable. So before, you can see how the street is not in very good condition, but if you see the after, the picture on the right, it's a marked improvement, significant improvement that is in conjunction with Fairview Park, as you see there. And we have received great reviews from the community with respect to this project. So in terms of facilities, what we've completed was the police department range remodel. It's a significant remodel of the practice range in conjunction with our assistance with the police department. We have improved the lighting there. We also replaced all the antiquated equipment there, which is now furnished with very modern equipment. We improved the baffling and the soundproofing, which is now much improved. We're also repairing the exhaust and supply air ventilation. We're also improving the existing inadequate ammunition storage facility, which is now totally improved. So all in all, we replaced the substandard elevator, and we're about to finish that sometime later by the month of May for that. So all in all, the police officers are practicing the new facility, and it's a marked improvement from what we had from last time. Next slide. So I'll defer back for active transportation.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Honorable Council members. As Mr. Yang had mentioned, we are continuing to make active transportation improvements throughout the community of Costa Mesa. Some of the other improvements surrounding active transportation that were made in the last fiscal year include rectangular rapid flashing beacon, or RRFB, at Santa Ana Avenue and Esther Street, raised pedestrian crosswalks on Meyer Place and Pomona Avenue, bicycle rack installations, which you may have seen being sort of implemented throughout the community to increase the effectiveness of bicycle parking and access to business by bicycle, as well as many improved bicycle class 3 bicycle routes. We also implemented our citywide residential parking permit program. This program was designed to provide equitable access, sustainable parking solutions throughout the community, and efficient program management. The City Council approved the new residential parking permit program guidelines. We engaged the community, and we did community outreach on the new program and implementation. We launched an online portal to manage permits, and we also implemented automated enforcement in conjunction with the Costa Mesa Police Department. This program, as Mr. Setharaman had mentioned, has been highly successful. It did win a Parking Program of the Year award at the California Mobility and Parking Association. And with that, I'll hand it back to the team.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bertencio Thomas. So I'll take this in terms of talk about new facilities. But before I do, I'll be remiss to mention about Placentia Avenue. We planted 39 new parkway trees. So from up and down Placentia Avenue, we have new trees, and that also contributes not only to active transportation, but sustainability and with our environment as well. So back to Fire Station number 6, which is one of the new facility projects that we work with our maintenance services division. And we installed a roofing medium that's on top of Fire Station number 6, which is now efficient and also protects it from the elements with the weather. And it's a significant improvement from what was there before in terms of the old roofing. The new roofing includes new energy efficient skylights. They now utilize daylight and natural light for the apparatus bay, and which is significant in terms of the firefighters who use the facility during the day. Next slide. Another 2 facilities we did is with the police department in particular. One is the foundation stabilization. So this is the wing of the police department. It was been undergoing some settlement over the years, and because of the settlement, some of the windows were out of joint, and also the doorways as well. And that posed a significant problem. But our public works department underwent through a design phase and later found a more economical route, which is jet grouting. So for this project, the differential settlement was resolved by using this innovative jet grouting technique, in which we inserted underneath the foundation of the building, of the west wing of the police department, raised it up to the appropriate level. It's fully stabilized. And over the last few months, our staff has went there and checked, and we have no more settlement in this facility, which is great, great news. Another thing that we did was the underground fuel storage tank abandonment project. So this fuel tank was part of the generator that was used to be there that supplied fuel for that. Since we have a new generator, which is above ground, this old underground facility is no longer in service. So we've worked with the health department in getting the necessary permits and basically abandoning this storage tank facility. The health department gave its final approval, and it's now safely abandoned, and we have now put new landscaping on top of that, and it's now only safely abandoned, but also very clean with new landscaping as well. Thank you. So I defer that back to Mr. Sethuraman. Thank you, Mr. Sethuraman. So what are we going to do in this upcoming fiscal year in 2024-25? First and foremost, this is our bread and butter program, which is our annual program, which is the citywide street rehabilitation and also alley improvements program. Every year, we go around the city and improving our city streets to make sure there are more than good condition for our motorists, and also improving safety features for our also pedestrian public as well. So this annual program is in accordance with our pavement management system. We make an endeavor for the City Council goal to reach and maintain an average PCI of 85, and we strive to maintain PCI of 85 or above year after year. So in addition to the citywide street rehab, we also rehabilitate our citywide alleys, and we've done that steadily over the course of the years. And these improvements consist of all council districts. Next slide. So here's the next list. I know it's a bit small. Maybe that's a good thing. It shows how ambitious we are for the next upcoming fiscal year. These are all the lists of streets and alleys that we plan on doing and completing. So it's a hefty list, but we're committed to improving all these streets. And this is just a factor in terms of our commitment in improving all these streets throughout the city. Next slide.
Over there? Ice maker, all right, yes. I'm sure we were all thinking that.
Yeah, so one of the really exciting projects for FY 24-25 is going to be the Adams Avenue Bicycle Facility Project from Fairview Road to Harbor Boulevard. This came on the heels of us receiving a $1.76 million federal grant via the Orange County Complete Streets Program. This will implement Class 2 bicycle lanes as well as Class 4 cycle tracks, which are those separated bicycle lanes that we just saw in the photos of Placentia Avenue, as well as median modifications, new slurry seal, and intersection and traffic signal modifications at Fairview and Adams. And really, this project is designed to improve the pedestrian and bicycle environment and general mobility around Orange Coast College, as well as the high-density residential in that area. And it's a really exciting project that we're happy to be moving forward with. We will also be moving forward with design on an interconnected project on Fairview Road improvement project from Fair Drive to Adams Avenue. We also received a federal grant of about $1.99 million over the next 2 fiscal years. And this fiscal year, we will be in the design phase. This project will improve bicycle facilities with various treatments, as well as high visibility pedestrian crossings and crosswalk markings and other pedestrian upgrades, as well as transit stop improvements. And, to mention, this is a very high transit corridor, one of the most highest transit corridors in our entire city by both ridership and number of buses an hour. This will also improve pedestrian and bicycle mobility and access to Orange Coast College, as well as to Costa Mesa High School and Costa Mesa Middle School campus and various other activity centers in the area. Again, this is for design in FY 24-25 with construction phased in a future fiscal year as part of that grant. Lastly, we also received another grant, kind of the key word here, lots of grants. This is for the Highway Safety Improvement Program, or the HSIP program, for $3.9 million. This is for a traffic signal modernization for systemic multimodal safety improvements. This includes implementing leading pedestrian intervals at 49 intersections throughout the city. It also installs countdown pedestrian signal heads, countdown timers. It installs, that's at 43 intersections, and also installs new retroreflective backplates seen in this photo here at intersections throughout the city. It installs battery backup systems at major intersections, and it installs emergency vehicle preemption devices at 30 intersections to complete the network for the city's emergency services.
Recording in progress.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. The next project is a tree planting and young tree care program. Happy to announce that just today we received official word from the Arbor Day Foundation that the city's been recognized as a Tree City USA once again. That's our 18th year. Keep in mind, this is for 2023. We're always kind of a year behind in our recognition, so we have certain criteria we need to meet for that previous year and submit that to the Arbor Day Foundation. So once again, we are Tree City USA. This program would help us continue to maintain that designation. Would help to improve the overall tree canopy in areas of the city that are deficient. The proposed funding would enable a planting and initial care for up to 250 new trees within the city. That initial care is going to be critical in helping to improve our tree canopy coverage and establish those trees. This funding is in addition to our Parkway tree planting program, as well as any planting in association with other approved CIP projects. As Sung had mentioned earlier, that includes those 36 or 39 trees we planted along Placentia Avenue. So this is in addition to those programs. We're hoping also to have funding in that where a tree canopy assessment done by a consultant as well. Just a little footnote, this Friday, April 26th is Arbor Day. In celebration of Arbor Day, we'll be planting trees at Marina View Park. It'll be from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. So if you have time, come out and help us plant a tree. Thank you.
heck of a lot more than that. So I'm just wondering if we could take a step back and city manager, what do you envision there? What's the timing? How big can it be? And is there any reason why we shouldn't be, I mean, deferring more of this to a bond, for example? How should I be thinking about that? You know, when I was first elected, there was a lot of conversation about lighting sports fields. And it was one of those things where once you got past the rhetoric and looked at how much that would actually cost, I want to say it was in the $15 million range. And I had a couple of blunt conversations at the time with folks from Costa Mesa United, for example, saying that there's just never going to be a scenario in which we've got 15 extra million dollars sitting around that feels like a bond project. So I don't know. I mean, I'd be curious to see what some of the other council members think about that. I don't know that that's necessarily what I want to run around advocating for, but I know there are other things where we've said that's never going to happen in a CIP budget. We need to pull that out. So I do think we need to probably have a more detailed conversation about what goes into a bond. I see you all looking around on the dais. Is that what we look like?
That's what we look like.
Well, I mean, yeah, I would assume that we wouldn't, again, maybe this isn't the appropriate venue for this conversation, right? But if we were going to put these things out to a bond, I think the notion is also that the taxpayers are willing to pick up some of the cost for some larger community benefit. So anyway, I can have separate conversations offline with you all to better understand that. But it does feel like something we kind of keep talking about without much detail. Regarding generators, I'm glad Councilmember Reynolds is there. It feels like the senior center opportunity is sort of a perfect opportunity for a microgrid. So we're replacing HVAC. We're going to be on the roof. We're replacing the roof. Like, can we think more creatively about resilience there? There's also a lot of grant funding available for projects like that. How have we thought about an off-grid system that relied on renewables as opposed to a diesel generator? As opposed to relying on a diesel generator, are there other technologies that we've perhaps considered? Yeah, that's it's a great application for off-grid battery storage. So you're not going to be using a diesel generator every day. It's just going to sit there in case of emergency with maybe 72 hours of fuel. That's exactly where an off-grid battery application could come in handy because you could use it normally during the day and then it would be there for emergencies as well. So also happy to talk about that offline. Really excited to see the Fairview Road projects coming to fruition, as well as Adams Avenue. I think that's going to have a really meaningful impact in my district. So I'm glad to support that. I also understand the way park funding has sort of ebbed and flowed. But I also recognize some of the comments made by the speakers. So I think this goes into our 5-year planning and our longer planning. And making sure that we're being equitable about how we're treating all the parks around the city. I do recognize that a lot of the grant funding in this last cycle specifically went to District 3 parks with the inclusion of T-Winkle in a big way. So we needed to do that. That is the neighborhood park that is incredibly well used. I've often said if you go anywhere in the city on a Saturday, you will see the most people in the smallest area in T-Winkle Park. And so I'm glad we're doing everything we can to continue getting those projects wrapped up. I think that's all I have for right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council members, anybody else? Arliss?
Sure. Yeah, I'll go. First of all, great report. Thank you for all of that. It's really exciting to see everything that we are doing and that we've planned to do. I think the biggest question is just sort of how we get it all done, in addition to the things we want to add to that. I'm going to try to go through. I'm just going to go through my notes, and hopefully it's in some logical order. Actually, let me start with a few questions. So we've had a number of conversations about the length of our CIP list. This presentation suggests adding 47 more projects. One of the things that I think has been coming up more and more is as we receive bids on projects, the bids are sometimes quite a bit higher than what we planned. So I'm curious, as more time passes, as we have projects sitting on our sort of previously approved list, how does the cost increases, how are we sort of planning for the cost increases that we've seen in managing the budget for projects that have already been approved? So, or usually our contingencies are 10% of a project cost. It sounds like you're suggesting that sort of our performance on past contingencies you think is creates enough buffer to account for increased project costs.
We actually got quotes for what it is, and that's what you see on the request, along with a little bit of contingency too on that one. So we try to be as close as possible in terms of trying to estimate what the costs are. But on some projects our estimate doesn't really match up, and we do come for additional funding, and that has happened. For example, the Station 4, the replacement of the training tower, we had to get more funding for that project.
That was significant. Okay. Yeah, what I was going to really ask about or suggest if we haven't, if we think we need to is like, do we need a bucket of funds to sort of account for cost increases for projects approved maybe based on a budget 5 years ago? I think that's something to look into. Also, you mentioned sort of budgets for ongoing projects like sidewalk repair, for example. That's been flat for probably the last 10 years or so, right? So if those costs are growing up, I know we've talked about concrete, what we can actually do in terms of sidewalk repair is really going down, right?
Yes.
So I think we should be looking at whether to escalate some of those budgets for the regular maintenance of our street facilities, or all facilities.
Yeah, the good thing about sidewalks is it qualifies for the gas tax. So we do have that flexibility of adding funding to that program as we go.
Good, okay. I didn't see in attachment 4 where you provided the status of our parks projects. I didn't see the county-funded parks projects in there. Can you just confirm that those are sort of moving forward? I don't remember the deadlines for those, but I was surprised not to see those in attachment 4. Or maybe I missed them.
So Councilmember Reynolds, actually the Tivinco skate park is listed in that one. Is one of the projects that's county funded, so that's there. The one project that you don't see is the Lions Park Cafe. We can add that to the list too. Just a quick update on the status of the Lions Park Cafe. It's going through a final building approval and also getting a county health permit. We think we should get that very soon, and our contractor is ready to get started. So we'll coordinate with our parks programming. For example, there's a fish fry coming down the road, so we want to make sure that we don't start at that time, but it'll get underway very quickly.
And is that construction that you're talking about? We'll get
Yes,
started
it's
soon?
construction.
Okay,
We'll get
so shortly
started.
after fish fry is done?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then back to the topic of sort of ongoing maintenance. On my way here, I drove through my new favorite intersection in the city, 19th and Wallace, and then drove through 19th and Pomona, which is another very, very highly trafficked crosswalk with our senior center there. And the crosswalks are pretty worn. Another thing that we get a lot of comments throughout the year is crosswalks near our parks and near our schools, and we had talked about the sort of annual refresh program. I've noticed that some of the bollards on Placentia, just near Estancia High School, are tilted, some missing. Do we have in our budget sort of plans for regular maintenance of those facilities?
Yes, yeah. So as part of the Placentia project, for example, we stockpiled several bollards so we have that in our yard, and our crews are they know how to fix anything that is damaged, so they'll take care of it. We'll make sure that gets fixed. And the school crosswalks, we go through during the summer to see any crosswalks that need refreshing, and we go through that program, especially near schools. We'll refresh all the crosswalks. And the contract for the striping generally starts around this time after all the rainy season. So they'll be going through and refreshing other crosswalks too.
Okay, so we've got in our budget, we won't need new CIP brush. We've got in our budget the funds to maintain crosswalks, the bollards. I meant to also say the green paint that we're putting in.
Yes,
okay.
yeah. We'll budget. Every time it needs refreshing, we'll make sure that it's included.
Okay,
yeah.
Great. Okay. I'll try to run through a list here of then some comments on what I saw in the proposed CIP here. So I'm really excited about the facility needs and assessment study. 2 questions, or I guess 1 question. Does that include, are we including in that our bus shelter facilities?
No, these are actually city facilities.
Okay, our bus shelters are city facilities, right?
So the bus shelters come under a different program. So the city does not own the bus shelters, it's owned by Clear Channel. And we are going through the RFP for the franchise agreement. And as part of that agreement, all the refurbishment or replacement of all the shelters is included as part of that program.
Okay. I thought we owned the shelters, so Clear Channel owns them? I thought they just maintained them.
They own them.
No, okay. What would we need to do to get an assessment of our bus shelter facilities? And I'm specifically thinking about shelters where, when it's raining, I see people standing, I call it shelters, bus stops where I see people standing in the rain, or I see people standing in the sun, right, trying to duck behind a tree where there's no shade on a hot day.
Yeah.
So how can we get an assessment of the conditions of all of those stops?
So, Councilman Reynolds, one thing that we already did in our, as part of this RFP that's under development right now, is we looked at all the number of people who get on a bus or get off the bus, boardings and lightings at every single stop. And we have that information now, and we're developing a threshold of where, at a minimum, where we need a shelter. One other thing that determines a shelter location is also, do we have the right of way to install a shelter? Because when we want to do a shelter, we need to make sure that we have 8 feet of, minimum 8 feet of sidewalk space.
Right.
So we are going through that process right now to evaluate where we need to add shelters based on a criteria that we want to meet at a minimum. And then go from there. So that's going to be part of the RFP process. And we do evaluate. So we are having the Clear Channel right now. They're going through each shelter, and they're either painting them, replacing either the trash cans or any broken glass, anything. So they're actually doing this already. So that every week or every 2 weeks, we get pictures of what new shelters they painted. So that's happening right now for existing shelters, but we are looking at changing for the new program. We are talking to our specialist about whether we want to do a different design for the shelter. Yeah, and also working, putting that in the budget too, in the upcoming proposal. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. I'm really happy to hear about that work going. I think this is a sort of an area sorely needed. I would share. I'll learn more about that from you offline.
Yes.
I will share that in my movement around the city, whether on foot, on bike, or in my car. There's quite a few shelters that I don't think reflect well on our city. And so I do want to make sure that we're working with the next contractor or through the next contract to really improve the way we've been maintaining, those facilities have been maintained. Okay. On the senior center, 100%, I had the same comment as Councilmember Mar, and we can share some, I think we both have some information about different grants that we should be very well positioned for with the senior center as a cooling center and potentially a resiliency hub. I think it's a really good opportunity that we should pursue, and there's a lot of state and federal money to support that. The alley improvements, excited to see that. I've mentioned this before, and I think I've seen in the past a green alleys program. I'd really like to see us look into ways to not just blanket an area with concrete, but really implement some of the green alley strategies, which should help with stormwater capture, as well as beautifying a space. Really excited about the tree planting program. I'm glad to see some emphasis there. I think you've heard several council members prioritize that as well. The West Side substation is something I've been interested since being on this council. We actually had a CIP project prior to when COVID hit that got delayed. My understanding is there's some critical safety issues at this facility that we need to prioritize to be able to use this again. I also, this is a building in the city that has a lot of history as a community hub. And so I'd really like to see in the design of that some consideration of how we can sort of reintroduce that building as also a community-facing facility. I've reminisced with some folks recently about the pancake breakfast that used to happen at that facility, I think in partnership with the Lions Club, but I could be wrong, and our police department. So it's really important to me that we consider that. There were a lot of different ideas shared back in, I think, 2019 about opportunities with the West Side substation, but I'm glad to see that moving forward because I know that was some safety and health and safety issues there. Let's see. On parks, I think I had some of the same reactions about seeing fewer projects here or a smaller amount of funding. I understand why. I really liked the ideas Ms. Tanaka shared on maybe some strategies to more efficiently take care of the regular maintenance of parks. This may be a good activity for our Parks Commission too over the next couple years. I know when I was on Parks Commission, it felt like sort of an ad hoc approach to how we, address the different park needs. I think we would really benefit from a framework of how we maintain our parks over time, maybe similar to what we're doing on the facilities assessment. Yeah, and I know this is a different topic, but if we had our open space master plan done, I think that would also inform how we're more systematically planning for the acquisition or development of parks to make sure that every neighborhood does have a park. The map that Ms. Tanaka showed reminded me of some maps that we were supposed to get from the contractor there to show what neighborhoods really don't have safe walking or biking access to a park. So a senior in a neighborhood, for example, who cannot drive may not be able to walk to any green space in their neighborhood. And I think that's something sorely lacking for many residents that I really want to find. So all of that to say, really support the continued funding of our park development fund. That's an easy one that doesn't take any staff time. Let's just keep putting money in a bucket so we can acquire land when it becomes available. Okay, so on the streets, one of the things that I mentioned in our meeting last Friday was, I think we have a big backlog in the requests for the residential neighborhood traffic calming. That's something that I think comes up more and more and more. It's probably the majority of comments and requests that I get. I think the $100K a year we have is just not enough for that. I think one of our backlogs too there is staffing as well. So I'd really like to find a solution. Maybe that's more of a budget discussion, but really a solution to address the backlog in residential neighborhood traffic calming. And then I think we're also underfunded in sidewalk assessments. So I've really been wanting us to explore addressing sidewalks, as we're looking at trying to encourage walkability more, trying to encourage mode shift, working on safe routes to school. I'd like us to be more proactive in how we're addressing sidewalk needs. This is something I think I've mentioned every budget cycle, but became even more important to me when my father almost cracked his skull tripping on a sidewalk a few months ago. So I think my understanding is the way we're approaching this now is very ad hoc, right? Complaint driven. We have an annual or biannual approach to assessing our street needs. I think we should be looking at a similar systematic approach to assessing our sidewalk needs. Again, to address the, 25-30% of Costa Mesa residents who don't have a car and depend on our sidewalks. So I would encourage us, I saw that we had some money left over in our sidewalk budget from previous needs. Maybe we could allocate some of that to a proactive sidewalk assessment so we at least know what the gap is. That would be something I think would be really beneficial to the community. Another question on streets. So I'm so excited for our bike safety education program. I know we're like a month away from launching that. And many parents are very excited about that program coming to the schools. I didn't see that funded in the future. Do we need to fund that in the future? We have $150K this year to build this program and implement bike safety education in every school, but that's only for 1 year. How do we make sure that continues?
Yeah, so that program is funded through the end of next school year. So this school year, we'll begin programming, and then that goes through the end of next school year.
Okay.
That'll include 3 classes per a school with enrollment zones within the city of Costa Mesa, including the 4 schools in Newport Beach on the east side.
Okay.
And yeah, that's...
And
So
then
it's funded through next year, so it doesn't need to be in the upcoming budget, but I didn't see it in the 5-year plan either. Did I miss it?
So one thing that, so as part of this project right now, the vendor is actually giving us all the materials so that we can use our, for the future. So we don't need that much funding in the future. So it's something that we can look into in the later fiscal years, but it's all the prep materials are there, so it's a matter of just having somebody go and provide that education in the future. So we can look into that.
Okay, yeah, I think there's really, really high community demand for that. My understanding is the program addresses safe riding on e-bikes as well as regular bikes too. So I think that would be really valuable to make sure whatever appropriate level of funding is in our long-term budget
Yes.
as well.
Yeah, we'll include
Great,
that.
okay. Moving on to the 5-year, I guess this is next year. It did jump out to me that there was nothing budgeted this year for the energy and sustainability projects. I understand why. I do feel regretful that we've not moved on this more. We've had some staffing vacancies and absences. Really want to get this moving. I'm hoping that this year we can get the cap done and pursue the community choice energy program that we had previously funded. I would love to see us get moving on the landscape replacement program too. I was disappointed that seemed to have gotten deferred again. 5-year facilities, I didn't even look at that because I'm hoping that we would adjust that based on the findings of the facilities assessment. I already mentioned citywide neighborhood traffic calming. Oh, okay. So 2 more things I want to mention here. So there's several projects on 5-year that I would propose we strike. I'll talk to you about that separately, but usually it's projects that I see as in conflict with what we're trying to do in terms of mode shift and active transportation. Any widening project I think is just in the wrong direction. And then there's several projects to add, right turn lanes or left turn lanes that just don't seem like they will work well with some of the active transportation projects that we've already implemented or have planned. And that brings me to this topic of mode shift in general that we've brought up a few times and I think is absolutely necessary with the rezoning that we plan to do. I would like us to think about our 5-year plan in terms of the street and transportation projects, really from the lens of how do we make this mode shift happen, right? We brag that we have the highest, bike and walk mode share in Orange County, but it's still pretty low and way lower than it needs to be for the, I think, vision we have and in the way we need to grow and just sort of sustainable transportation moving forward. So I think it would be really valuable for us to sort of step back and get a team together that's thinking about how do we effectively make that mode shift happen and really adjust maybe next year our longer term transportation and street projects around that concept. So I'll stop there. I think that's the related to some of the visioning and rezoning that I think we need to really focus on this year. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Arliss. Council? Go ahead.
I can go, if you like.
Please.
Can we go back to bonds, and it's really 2 things. One, what's the process for approving the bond, Carol? Is there, I'm assuming that the CIP is not an approval of a bond, but there's another separate process.
That's correct. The beginning stages of this is we're meeting with the Public Works Director and the Fire Chief to assess the design, the need, the cost of the fire stations. We're also talking to our PFM, which is our finance management consultant, to be able to identify the length of the bonds, all the details that they would need in order to make sure that we have security. Do we have a deposit? How are we going to pay for the bonds? And then after that, at that moment, they would come to council to provide an overview for the council to essentially approve to moving forward with the bonds. So it's a pretty lengthy process. Right now, we're still in the beginning process of that. We wanted to identify it since we're already talking within ourselves on staff, and we have brought forth to the council the idea of bonding the fire stations and the police west side.
So is everything you just discussed within the time frame of this approval of the CIP budget?
The approval of the CIP project is not.
No, I'm sorry, excuse me. You had a schedule of things that are going to happen to approve the CIP. Is the bond approval process within that? He's saying no.
No.
Within that's not. So
No,
it's
it's
even
not.
beyond that. So we might say, yeah, we agree with this, but then the bond will come back or not, right?
Correct.
In a year, maybe.
A year, year and a half, depending on where we're at
Right.
and depending on the financing and so forth. There's a lot that goes into the financing
So
of the bonds.
fully amortized 20-year bond, probably.
Correct.
Is that about right?
That's about right.
4.5%, 5%?
It depends on where the market is going to be at the time.
Today, the market's
About 5%.
about 5%, so we're talking about $1 million in interest every year,
Correct.
probably 13 million in interest over 20 years.
Correct.
Probably has a good guess, huh? You're just agreeing with me, be nice.
No,
You don't-
I
you
mean,
don't-
at this point,
I
it's,
just
it's,
guessed.
it's gonna be an unknown until we're there, right? It's gonna really depend on where we're at, the market is gonna
Of
be
course,
at the time.
of course, it
At
could
this
be.
time, those numbers sound about right, but it's gonna really be dependent on, where we land at that moment in time.
When you pay that interest and you pay for the principal, does it end up in the CIP budget for the next year or the coming years? Where does it come out of your financial statements?
It would be part of the CIP budget for the payment of the bonds, but right now we have it part of the general fund as some seed money.
Just trying to understand how this works. Yeah, can you appreciate that? So we have a CIP budget this year. Are there any bonds outstanding right now for any facilities?
We have the lease revenue bonds.
And what's that
That's
for?
for the library,
The
Lions
library.
Park.
Okay.
And that's our only outstanding
That's
bond.
very good. That's very good. And is this I mean, where does the revenue come from for this bond? I mean, the fire station, unless you guys are doing bake sales, where does it doesn't come from the fire stations, right?
Most likely will be the general fund.
The general fund. Okay. But you don't have to identify a specific revenue source.
Well, yes, we do. We are, yeah.
Last year, what was that? What's that revenue source?
It's in the general fund operating budget. So last year, we started to put those funds aside so we could work our way up to being able to pay for the bond.
Correct.
Oh,
the
so
current-
what's on deposit? So we've collected money so far, and there's money
Yes.
set aside?
Correct.
How much money set aside?
Correct, we have $2 million set aside, and then we have $1 million as in the seed money for our general fund for our payment plan.
Right.
Oh, I see. So that's the,
So we have to fund two things. One is the debt service, 1 year's worth of debt service payments that we can go to the capital markets and the underwriters, typically, let's say like a Merrill Lynch or one of the big investment firms,
Yeah.
they need to know that we're putting in our own cash behind it before they underwrite the bonds and then sell it to their investors. And so we already have 1 year's worth of debt service, about $2 million for at least one fire station, and then we already have $1 million worth of debt built into the operating budget so that we'll be able to pay for it eventually when it's issued. It's a really long process, working with the financial advisors, usually a 30-year bond, because it needs to match the life expectancy of the actual asset, and they want to see that it gets collateralized, and then from there, we work with them to issue the bonds to
so
the
Lorianne, did you say there's a piece of the
sector.
down payment you have to make?
Yes, we have
You have to
to have cash.
have a few years' payments in your coffers?
No, it's 1 year's payment of debt service as the cash, as the debt service reserve. We have that, right? That's the $2 million. And then in addition to that, we already have $1 million worth of the annual debt service payment already built into the budget.
Okay, no down payment, though. We would finance the whole fire
We
station.
only have the $2 million, we have the $2 million in reserves that's going towards the down payment.
A down payment.
Yes.
So
They
you'll-
consider it the
No,
same.
it's currently there.
Right.
That's currently there. So the fire station is 20 million, we're going to finance 18 million, theoretically, 22 million, we'll finance
We
20
have
million.
enough for the one bond. We're starting with the one bond.
Oh, just one at a time.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
At a time.
got it. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry but it's a long process is what you're saying. It's interesting. I was concerned about when I look at this, it's page 21, and I look at the $47 million CIP budget and 20 million's bond financing and $6 million is grants. And I guess grants come every year. Is that the average grants? I'm thinking in a conservative nature of how do we get all these projects done? Because you need to generate more out of the general fund really to have security in getting them all done. And we've got, what, 290 million, 270 million in projects sitting out there?
Correct. So some of the grants are ongoing, so we can definitely secure those. However, sometimes we get one-time grants, like the, state Senator Min money, the
Right.
Contributionis money. Those are one-time grants, so we'll get some of those too.
And those
However,
Carol, those last year?
correct.
They were gone. They're not in this year's at all. Got it. Okay. I want to thank Ralph for putting this schedule together. It helped me get clarity on what shifted around. So I want to make sure I understand. He's identified a column, it's capital improvement programs. Is that from last year's budget? And then this shows the shift we made in the current proposed?
Yeah, as I mentioned, the 5-year that you see in this budget or previous budgets, that's more for planning purposes. It's not a true reflection of what, for example, if you look at our current 5-year, the 5-year that we're proposing attachment to, what we show for 25, 26 may not reflect exactly the CIP that we have for 25, 26. It'll be based on the needs and priorities at that time. So those are for planning purposes only, and if we have any grants, we use that to get grants.
Yeah, you're right. I just want to make sure I understood
Yeah.
what his perspective was. And so, I mean, what it says is in what he's saying and thank you, Ralph, I think what he's saying is what shifted, what changed, why, is I think what his question, and it's my question too. I'm concerned there isn't more for parks. I'm concerned there's a big shift in the whole budget, a little tiny amount for parks and some streets, and then facilities is kind of took a big chunk out of everything. So you guys are proposing a significant change. You want to talk to why that is?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, when we put this together, this budget together, our current the facilities, how they are, kind of played a big role in crafting the CIP. We noticed that the facilities needed a lot more attention due to leaks we saw in senior center, at our police department, and also at the Norma Herzog. In some areas, we have some leaks. We want to make sure that those get addressed, and that's kind of we look at overall needs, and even for parks, we do have a list of all the parks where we need to replace playground equipment or identify any other improvements, and we do take care of those.
In the original capital improvement program, facilities was 10 million. 10 million. Was that a fire station in there, or was that something else?
Yeah, it's most likely fire
It
station.
was a fire station.
Fire station 4.
And so now we're doing 2 fire stations and spending 5 million on the stuff you just described.
Exactly.
That sound right?
Exactly, yeah. And we do improve. For example, if you look at our most recent snapshot, we did improvements at Angels Playground. And it's not that we do take care of parks as we see there is need for fixing equipment, fixing the surfacing underneath the playground equipment. So all that get taken care of as part of our operating budget too.
Okay.
So some shows up in the capital, some actually we do it as part of our operating budget.
Okay. And Raj, I'm not critical. I'm just pointing some out. And I want to support Andrea and Arliss in their, push on parks and spend some money there. The last thing I want to thank Jen Tanaka for her email and her public comments, and I think she's spot on on a lot of things. And the last thing, I'm going to pick on page 9 in the nicest way. You did 66,000 linear feet, which is fantastic, I think. I just want to know, should it be 80,000 linear feet or 50,000 linear feet? So every time you guys always, and forgive me for saying this, every time you give me a number in a specific time frame, I always go, well, is that good or bad? You tell me it's good. You've never said this is a bad number. I've never had you guys do that, anybody. But if you could give me last year's number, prior year's number, always give me a point of reference, or what's a standard for a city to make it improve? That's just a general comment, and that doesn't apply just to you guys. It applies to everything I always see in the city, so respectfully.
So, Councilmember Harper, the good number that you see is in the bottom, where it says the PCI.
Yeah.
That's a citywide, how we are maintaining our streets. And it has hovered in that range, so we are consistent. We did not do too much, or we did not make it 85, but we're getting there.
Raja, I believe you, and I have faith in you. I may not have faith in the next guy that sits there, so I'm always looking for a point of reference. I'm not being critical at all. really not. I'm just like, I always like to go, somebody gives you data, says it's good. I don't know. And the next councilman's going to know.
I know, just to be clear, Councilmember Harper, the PCI is a metric that we have to report on. So to your point,
Yeah.
once Raja retires into the distance, right?
Yeah.
You, as a council, you should always know our PCI. It's something that we're rated at. It's a comparable, consistent metric among cities. Getting to 85 is very good. Many cities aren't even at the good. So you always want to, your PCI is that indicator. It's that industry, well-recognized in government.
Yeah.
A PCI of 83 is actually pretty good. Many aren't, and I think we're like third in the county. So that's a good.
I actually knew that.
That's consistent.
I actually happened to know that before this, but thank you. Again, my point is going to be the same. It's the next person that sits up here and goes, and maybe I should be saying last year it was 50 feet or 50 linear feet, and Guy, you did 66 this year, and who's doing a great job. So in the most positive sense.
So Councilman Harper, actually that kind of metric is in our budget book. When you see it, you'll have performance indicators that say what we did last year, the previous year, and what's being planned for next year.
I have no idea. I no doubt I could find the data if I looked for it. I'm just looking. Forgive me for being lazy. I'd like to be able to say it's great or it's bad. So you don't have to defend yourself, Raja. I think a lot of you. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Good questions and comments. Next up, Manuel.
Thanks, Jeff, keeping it casual. So I'm gonna just go around here and just kind of see where the journey takes all of us. First of all, great presentation. Thank you for the added details this time around. Quickly want to just kind of thank both Andrea, Arliss, and Don for asking the deep questions on the bonds. I had some thoughts and questions as well, but I think generally speaking, if Don, who gets finances more than I do, is comfortable, then I think I'm comfortable. And I can chat more offline with everyone else. Real quickly, just off the bat, I know we have a few residents from my district that are here primarily regarding Plummer Street between 19th Street and I'm thinking blank, Center Street. I'm not sure if we own that alley. I'm willing to bet we do not because it abuts businesses. But I would want us to, as a staff, look into how we could facilitate a conversation to improve that alleyway. A lot of the apartments on Center Street, that's where they park their cars. Some carports, when I visited about a year ago with Sergio from the CST team, were kind of falling apart. A lot of potholes there, and I know they're here for that reason. Doesn't relate to the CIP, but perhaps we can do like a partnership with the businesses, or we're creating a zone where we share ownership of that alleyway with them, because it is deteriorating. It is always blocked for them to park because of trucks going in and out, and it's an area we need to be focusing on in West Side. I want to use talk about West Side to kind of rally a bit on what Arliss mentioned about 19th Street in Pomona. I have a lot of folks that are complaining about how much it backs up when things go awry in other parts of the city. I know for when we had the street closure, which sadly happens too often on Placentia and Victoria, that becomes another arterial folks take to get to work or home or whatnot, and it always backs up because there's no left turn signal, it's a yield sign. I do want to see us continue the 19th Street, down 19th Street, as appropriate as we can. I don't know if we want to be entirely losing a lane, but we do need to have some kind of way for e-bikes and bikes to go on the sidewalk safely and legally, and look at ways to make that intersection a lot safer for both folks walking, folks biking, and folks in their cars. Following on Arliss's comments, I do also want us to kind of start thinking about a vision for the police substation. I know it's been used by PD for a while as a additional place to do paperwork, a place to get some rest and between shifts, and I'm appreciative of that. But it's also a place of very much significance in Costa Mesa. I believe it's our first city hall. It's right next to a park. It's right next to a library that was activating a section in town. And any opportunity we have to activate spaces, we should fully do. So I agree with Arliss that substation is an area where we could be highlighting and focusing more intently to create more partnerships with PD and the community. I think it'd be very beautiful in the work we do in the city. Using that to go on parks, I'll just say that the part that no one wants to say for politeness. I mean, we don't have park fees because we don't build housing. Our park fees come from housing developments, like simple as that. And that pot of money is run out. Dawn asked the question how we get these grants, because they do come in often, I will admit. But it's because we have good partnerships with people in higher offices. So luckily, Senator Min, Congressman Norris in Assembly, Senator Foley want to invest in Costa Mesa. But what we're noticing with these grant fundings, which I'll need to another point, is that it, one, kind of does take away from our priorities. I know this council expressed the priority of focusing on like Brentwood Park, for example, and we have to potentially delay it because of grant funding coming in. But it's also the only way we get funding for parks is going to our higher elected officials. That's a big issue. We lose out on our destiny to shape the city how we want to shape it because we're basically waiting to see who funds the projects we have on the list. Which goes back to my point that Arthur mentioned earlier as well. I also want to get into a habit where we look into the CIP list and actually cut things from it. Sometimes projects we put in are wish lists. Maybe they shouldn't be in the CIP budget. Sometimes there's things that prior council members wanted and they've left the council. I know one of the grant funding projects we have is a project like that. And I don't know if I personally would have prioritized, and no offense to Senator Foley, I'm appreciative of the money she gave us, but I don't know if I would have prioritized a cafe over Brentwood Park, over Shalimar Park, or over Kitchen Light Bulb Park. So I think we need to start being proactive to start cutting our own list to make sure when we give a list of folks to fund, there are things we actually want to see funded. Following on that note, for staff, I just want to get a quick update from you guys on the status of when we'll see the completion of the community outreach, when we'll start construction, and when we'll finish construction for Shalimar, Kitchen Light Bulb, and Brentwood Park.
So as I mentioned, the Shalimar and Ketchum Light Bulb will have community outreach in May. Because we did quite a bit outreach before, we hope we have some good understanding of the community blessing of those plans at that time, and then we'll come to Parks Commission for final approval, and then we go through a design process. We hope to complete the design by fall of this year, and we can advertise the projects for construction, and by this time they should be under construction. And we hope by the end of next year we'll be done with the projects.
Okay, and that's for all three parks, so all three on the same timeline?
That's for the Shalimar, Ketchum Light Bulb, as well as the skate park. They are all on the same timeline.
Okay, and what about Brentwood Park?
Brentwood Park could actually be even a little faster because we hope to get started with the design process in summer of this year, and then we did some work on that before. So there isn't too much that needs to be done in terms of design. I think we hope to get to commission early fall on that one, and then proceed for construction phase.
Okay. I think to the extent we can move quickly on that one as
Yeah.
reasonably possible, we should. And I think that also leads to my other point, which apart from mentioning the fact that we don't have park fees because we don't have development, the fact that we have a lot of older parks in Costa Mesa, smaller parks that we need to be consistently investing in the same way we invest in facilities. I'm really pleased we're going to be doing a assessment for facilities. I want to do the same things for parks. And I keep thinking about City of Cypress because I covered them for about a year when I worked in the County of Orange. And the way they do their parks is that every 2 years they update a new park. And everyone knows, like, okay, every 2 years a new park will get updated. And it could be little things, it could be big things, but kind of creating that systematic system in our place of our budget where we can be investing in these small parks. Because when I look at this CIP list and see all these little parks like Marina Park, Brentwood, et cetera, it does feel like an ad hoc approach. And it's that way because we don't have a process in place. So to the extent we can create that process, I think that'd be helpful. Going on that route, I want to start talking a little bit more about like climate and climate resiliency. So I share frustration that we put as a goal to be a climate resilient city, and we haven't done much in that regard. I'm someone that's through time and learning has kind of moved more in that direction in general, but I did not begin in that direction. And I think there's a lot of people like me in that regard, in that when you talk about sustainability, environmental sustainability in the lens of like affordability, it makes it more efficient and saves money for a city. Or it's better for the environment, it's better for your quality of air. There's different ways to approach this issue. And I guess one thing I want to challenge us to do is to not put all the projects in one position. My feeling still stands. I think anyone with sustainability in their title is to be a very marketable person in this economy. I think there's a lot of businesses or corporations that want to hire people with sustainability in their job title. And that may mean that this role we have, sustainability manager, is one that needs to be refilled often. I'd rather see us put that in the budget or some kind of mode where every department is touching sustainability, and it's not just one person leading it, but it's a whole approach. I don't know much about microgrids. I'll be honest, I defer a lot to Arlis and Andrea when it comes to sustainability. I don't feel the most confident and comfortable talking about these things. But anywhere we can look for ways to become a bit more efficient, we should. And alongside that line, I want to acknowledge something that's very clear in my district, is that there's a lot of people in my district that want to own Teslas and can afford to own a used Tesla to tax credits, and they don't buy a Tesla because they don't have charging stations in Costa Mesa. We need to start looking at ways to be funding. I'm not sure how we do it, but I'm just going to put it out there that we should be funding public charging stations for Teslas and for EV vehicles. We should not let income status or renter status deter people from getting cars that are better for the environment and cars that save them money in the long run, because gas goes up every single year. Like, we're hurting our residents not doing this. In that lane of focus, I also want us to think about perhaps looking and studying community choice energy one more time. I know CPA has gone through a rehaul. I know they're showing numbers that are lower than SCE. I want us to be looking at that because, again, if there's a way for us to save money for our residents and for our businesses through a lower electricity rate, then we're doing our community a disservice by not saving them money, as well as the fact that there's benefits to it for the environment. So I also support looking into community choice energy as a strategy. Finally, I want to end with trees. I'm really happy we planted 39 trees on Legit Boulevard. It's a good progress we make. I think the more we can plant trees, the better. But I want to challenge us to stop thinking about just planting trees. We are Tree City USA. We're going to be for a long time. We do plant trees every year. I'm very proud of our commitment to that program, because we also help residents get trees if they want trees in their own property. But I want to challenge us to start looking at tree canopy covers. How much shade are we producing in areas that need shade, right? I love walking in an artist neighborhood because the trees cover the sidewalk and go over the street, and it feels cooler. And as we face more extremes in weather, because it's gonna keep happening, right? It's not like we're not gonna hit days this year with 100-degree weather. It's gonna happen every year moving forward. The more we can prioritize tree canopy covers, the better. And I think that's where I want to see us focusing when it comes to tree discussions. So I would like to see at some point, maybe we look at how we fund our arborists to see if we're prioritizing the right type of things to be incentivizing tree canopies. But I also want to acknowledge that staff's done a great job planting more trees, and that's a good place to start. But the vision for me is ultimately tree canopies. With that, I'll just say thank you guys for your hard work. I know it's a lot managing different funding sources, managing different projects. I know our community has a lot of things they want to see done, and I applaud that you guys are trying to do as much as you can with what you have for resources. So thank you guys.
All right, thank you very much, Manny. Lauren, any comments, questions?
So a lot of what I wanted to cover has kind of been covered, but I do have just a small list of things here. So I just want to start off by thanking you, Raja, and your staff for the presentation. It was very comprehensive. I would like to go back to fiscal year 23-24 under the proposed operating and capital improvement budget under our City Council study session dated May 9th of 2023. Under our for funding to strengthen public safety, one of the things that we had here, a couple of things. One of them was to fund and replace 4 motorcycles, 9 police patrol units, and a SWAT vehicle, and an animal control vehicle, and a police telecommunications truck for a combined total of $1.05 million. I think we got the SWAT van, right? We got the telecommunications vehicle, is that correct? Are you not the one I should be asking on that, or I see you looking?
I mean, we are, this is more on the capital improvement projects, and that's more on the fleet equipment.
It's under the CIP. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because it's under strengthening public safety.
Sure.
So did we get those?
Yes, I believe we did.
We did, right?
Just a second. Rob.
So we have we're expecting the 4 police motorcycles, I believe, the end of May. There are some issues with recalls on those that are being taken care of at the ports. The SWAT, you're talking about the SWAT van or the Bearcat?
Sure, we got that right.
We've received the Bearcat.
Great.
The communications truck is on order. And I believe we've received at least 3 of the interceptors thus far. The rest will be following shortly. They're being upfitted right now. So we've purchased them. They're in the process of getting all the protective and lights and sirens and all the things that PD requires. So we should have those shortly.
Okay, great, thanks. The reason I bring that up is because I think we've done a pretty good job of implementing that, right? And then the next bullet down, this is page 12 of what I just mentioned. Probably you don't have it in front of you, but I have it right here. Under strengthening public safety, there's the Belfast and Fairview intersection traffic signal. So help me out. When I look at what we have now under attachment 2, we have 183 items ending with the Wilson Street widening. Why don't I see the Belfast and Fairview intersection traffic signal?
Which attachment are you looking at?
Attachment 2 of...
It should be under attachment 3.
Oh, is that why I don't see it? Okay, just give me a second. Bear with me. Ongoing CIP list. Okay, I was looking at... Okay, there's quite a few here. Do you know where? And I apologize. I thought it was under attachment 2, that it just wasn't there based on its heading. There's 103 of them in attachment 3, so I don't know that they're...
Project number 43.
Okay. Where are we at with that?
So at this time, we have a consultant who is working on the RFP for the project, and we'll be advertising that for design.
Who is the consultant?
We have our on-call consultant, Mark Thomas. They're working on an RFP for the project, and we'll be advertising that. And once the design is underway, we'll be having some community meetings to discuss the project, and then proceed for construction phase.
Okay, I only ask because it's on the safe. It is absolutely on the safe pathways to school. The bus goes down that route. It makes a pretty vicious left turn on there. Okay, thank you. That was part of what I wanted to go over. The other thing was, give me a second here. I have a lot of notes that I went through. We have, you had here that we completed the shooting range. Is that correct?
It's, I would say 95% done, so it's very close. The elevator has to be inspected. That's kind of one of the last things.
Just an inspection?
Yeah, there's minor work and inspection.
Minor work left, but the main thing is the state inspection for the elevator.
And how far out is that? For the elevator?
For the elevator, yes.
So the shooting range is functional and usable?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I'll take you at your word on that. Other than that, like I said, most everyone covered a lot of what needed to be said, so I don't want to try and restate the obvious, but I would like to see where we're at with park improvements. My district has some of the nicest parks. That's undoubtedly some of the nicest parks, and I've personally taken some steps to try and improve at least Paularino Park by opening up some of the green space that we have. But if there's some areas that I can be helpful for park improvements, if we can move around some funding or something like that so that we can get park improvements underway, especially on the west side and areas maybe where we haven't had some park improvements, I would like to see that move forward. Other than that, that's really all I have. Thanks, everybody, for their time.
All right. Thank you, Lauren. Benefit of being last is everybody's covered most of what I want to talk about, which I think is actually a testament to all the hard work that my colleagues have done up here. So thanks for really digging in. A few first thank yous to staff, everybody associated with our public works projects and our capital improvement. This is the stuff that our residents, our businesses, our visitors see. It's incredibly important. And I know you take a lot of pride in the work that you do, and so do we. So I want to make sure that we appreciate you for that. I'm very pleased to see Brentwood Park is moving ahead, and Raj has promised it's going to be done by the end of this year. I'm kidding. And I'm pleased to see a number of the streets and alleyways on our improvement list this year. And Patrick, thank you for explaining more about the facilities needs assessment. I think that'll be a valuable tool for us moving forward. Generally, I think what this budget highlights is somewhat of an anomaly. We got so much grant money from a lot of our legislative partners this year. It kind of threw things a little bit out of whack. But what I think it did is highlight this friction that we have between being opportunistic, so doing those projects, and doing the projects that we, on behalf of our constituents, want to do. And what I'm hearing from my council colleagues is a desire to make this more of a systems approach or have some kind of guiding principle. So my suggestion maybe for next year is that we work earlier in trying to figure out what that approach looks like, so that we have more consensus when the budget actually comes to us in the list of projects. And to Arliss's question about the Parks and Open Space Master Plan, I agree. I think that could be a valuable tool. I'm not clear on how we integrate, if that's what we actually do, all the different plans that we have relative to the capital improvement projects. So we've got a stormwater master plan coming up. We've got pedestrian master plan, active transportation master plan, open space, facilities. I don't know if they're aligned or if there's some inconsistencies, but a cap coming up. Some way we need to figure out how to align all of this so that we do take advantage of all this planning that we're doing and actually do the implementation. I believe I heard some consensus at our strategic planning meeting last week for not being limited by existing capacity. And Arliss, correct me if I'm wrong. I think you were the one who said we should, and Manny as well, we don't want to be boxed in by what we have. And I think this council has a willingness to appropriate money, allocate it for trying to expedite projects. So what I'd like to know is there a budget to help expedite our current project list? What do we need to do to add more capacity? And I will highlight, even though he has spoken not that much tonight, but Rob Ryan has, I think, 8 of the 12 projects for this year under his purview. And I have complete confidence in you, Rob. It's not about that. But if we need to bring on other staff to help lighten that load and to accelerate projects, I'd like to know what it was, because I think we would be open to approving some budget for that. And then lastly, I believe it was Andre who mentioned something about lighting on a kind of a larger global basis, whether it needs to be bond funded. I had brought up Kaiser field lights several months ago. That was on a CIP at one point. It seemed to have drifted off, faded as the case may be. I'd like to make sure that comes back because I do believe there is community support and potentially some outside funding for that. Otherwise, I think this is a really, strong list of projects that we're all looking forward to delivering for the community. And with that, any other comments by council?
Yeah, Jeff, sorry, I'll just add, just on that note, I had forgot to mention the lighting. Definitely support exploring what we need to do to make field hours available longer, if that means adding lighting. Yep, thanks.
Sure. All right. Andre, if you're still with us, any parting comments?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, with
Mayor
that,
Pro Tem Harlan, I did want to just do a quick wrap up.
sure, of course.
Thank you. Based on the comments that I heard this evening. So first, I'll just give one point of clarification on the West Side substation. I don't want there to be a miscommunication on expectations for that project. After a lot of discussion and review and walking through that facility, what's here before you tonight is for, I'm going to call it a short-term fix to make the West Side substation more habitable, deal with some of the health and safety issues there. We have relocated certain members of the team to other facilities in the interim because we need to deal with some pretty significant repairs and maintenance, I'll say, that we have to do there. This is a short-term solution. The larger project, where there would be the design, the visioning of, what we want there, is not this project. This is, it's in the 5-year, and that number is an estimate. It may end up being higher than that. It's a really dated facility where we really haven't put a lot of investment into it. And so I think those numbers that are in the out years is a placeholder, and that would have to be general fund supported, and most likely piggybacking on a bond of some kind. Maybe it'll time with maybe Station 4 if we can, but I'm not sure. And so to be clear, that money is more for the immediate needs right now to make it a good facility for PD, maybe get code enforcement back in there if we can. But that's the nature of that project. It's not the larger project, if you will. So just wanted to clarify that. We'll definitely look into the alternative energy solutions for the generators. We do feel it's important to have generators and backup facilities in case of power outages at all of our major areas wherever we would be serving the public if there was ever a disaster or we had to kick into emergency management mode. But we'll definitely take a look at that. And Councilmember Mar, we'd love to work with you on, any grant opportunities that you're aware of there. In terms of the conversation on parks, you're aware of the $16.5 million that we've been able to secure. That's a record amount of funding, a historic amount of funding. Just so you know the process with the electeds at the higher levels with the Senate and with the county and the state, we've worked on those lists based on all the feedback that we had gotten from council members at the time with the focus on the West Side parks, and we also put in general fund for those projects. So we did a combination of general fund support for those projects, and then we were successful in securing, record amount of grant funding for those. And that's been the emphasis because those are big projects. It's a lot of funding, and it's all related to ARPA money, and that has to get spent, or we'll be in the horrible position of having to return those funds. That's why you're not seeing a lot of park projects here. We don't want to overcommit, underdeliver. And we have our hands full with Ketchum, Libel, Shalimar, and $10 million worth of investments in Fairview Park. And that is a very complicated project because of the amount of work that needs to be done to do the debris removal and restore 9 acres to our environmental agreements that we have with the OCTA, which they are watching closely. So we have a regulatory compliance issue there that we really need to focus on and make sure that we meet that statutory or that legal requirement and can deliver the 9 acres of habitat to OCTA that we need to get to them. And then we have, of course, Brentwood Park. That's the reason why this isn't park heavy. We need to deliver on the projects we've already promised you. And Assemblymember Cotty Petrie Norris, Senator Min, and then, of course, the ones that we gave to Supervisor Foley. And so usually we pitch a list, and the list is far longer than what you're seeing here. And the elected officials, based on their discussions with the governor's office and with their committees in the Senate and the Assembly, they talk about what it is that they would like to fund. So trust that we give a list that's probably 4, 5, 6 pages long, multiple conversations. In the end, they'll tell us what they think they can support, and then those will bring towards towards, forward for you for approval, but trust that the lists are much longer. It's a matter of what it is that they can fund. And so we're still working on that 16.5 million, and we'll build that out. I think it's a great idea for us to do a parks assessment. I think that would be we can try to build that in here so that we have a roadmap and a program for the remaining parks throughout the city, because we do not have an ongoing funding stream. In terms of all the plans, Mayor Pro Tem, you mentioned, the good thing about a CIP is that we have maybe 6, 7, 8, 9 different funding streams for a CIP. And some types of projects might have 3 or 4 multiple funding sources, and those are the easier ones. And then some will only have one, the general fund. So I think as we go through, and parks is one of those where unless we have a grant, it'll be the general fund. So an assessment will help to drive those decisions. So that's a great suggestion, and then we can go from there moving forward. But from what I'm hearing tonight, I think that it's the park assessment process from a review and getting into a habit of funding that we'll build into here. Any other individual parks, I'm hesitant to say we're going to add this park and that park, because honestly, something else would have to move off the list, and we would need to get that direction from you. And we're happy to do that. But I think the assessment will hopefully reveal what needs to happen from a safety standpoint, have our staff go out, look at the playgrounds, look at all the equipment and see what's the most antiquated, and do that every single year and get into a system. And so that's a great recommendation. And then I think last but not least, on the fire stations, the $20 million we can appropriate now, or we could wait. Honestly, we don't need the appropriation at the moment, but what we did want to do was daylight to you that we have these 2 fire stations where we do need to have improvements made. It doesn't make sense to pay for them outright. We don't have $20 million of general fund to be able to pay for those, and that doesn't qualify for any other funding stream. And so we wanted to have, your awareness on that, your visibility on that, because if that's not something that you feel, we can support, then we would want to know that. I'll tell you that these stations are old, and so we need to get into the path of all of our facilities with these 2 kind of leading the pack. And so we could adopt a CIP of 27 million and everything will get done. We'll continue on a parallel track on the bonds to have those conversations, but so it doesn't have to be appropriated, but we did want to let you know that if we move forward with the design and the conversations, we would be talking to the markets probably about Station 2 first, and about that $10 million bond. And it's a long process, and we would bring that to you and probably give you a big briefing on it beforehand. It's a sizable commitment. But wanted to let you know this is the path that we're trying to get down so we could work our way through city facilities, get them modernized, have a financing scheme to be able to pay for them, because we can't pay for them outright, and then move on to the next one, including the West Side Substation and other facilities. And so hopefully that provides a more well-rounded picture of what we presented to you this evening, but we'll take into account all the comments you made this evening and then bring it back at the next meeting for when we have our operating budget conversation with you at the next study session in May.
Okay. Thank you for that recap, Lauren.
No, I want to thank you for your comments and what you stated. I just want to make sure, and hearing this, when we're talking about the fire stations, that we don't, no pun intended, put them on the back burner. And I just want to make sure that we don't have a life safety issue or something like that, where we have another fire station trying to carry another fire station because of an antiquated situation. So input, not right now, but I think input from the chief would be crucial on helping us decide if we did want to make a change or what the priorities would be.
Okay. All right. Before we adjourn, I'd skipped over one other acknowledgement that I want to make, which is I want to again thank Public Works, in particular for the flashing beacon crosswalks. This year was at Santa Ana and Esther. Last year one was installed on the east side at Tustin and Woodland. I've got nothing but praise from constituents about that. They're very happy to have safe passages to schools in particular. So I just wanted to make sure that was recognized tonight. So thank you. And if there's nothing else, we are adjourned.